Welcome back to the channel where I provide regular cricket content on interesting topics. Before I get started, I want to ask your views on channel content. I have had some requests to cover one-day cricket more. What do you all think? I am personally a bit of a purist and have always preferred Test cricket. However, with the World Cup coming up and the international focus shifting onto the one-day game, I was thinking about making some videos on that. What do you think? I will always lean towards Test cricket, but would a few one-day videos be appealing? Please let me know in the comments. On to today's video, and it is the second of two where I am running down who I believe to be the best bowling partnerships of all time. As I mentioned on the first video, a truly great bowling partnership can be a nightmare for a batting side, because there is just no respite. It is a relentless barrage of one good over after another. I went into previous detail about what I am going to constitute as a bowling partnership, and I am sorry, Warren fans, I am not including spinners. The reason being that a great spinner would have likely had 3 or 4 partnerships which could have been classed as great, as they straddle across an entire attack. I am therefore talking about new ball, opening partners. With that out of the way, let's get started with the top 5 bowling partnerships of all time. Number 5, Broad and Anderson. This pair has been tricky for me to place. On one hand, you have got a sheer mountain of wickets which cannot be ignored. Whilst playing together, they have taken 1,037 wickets in games together. That is not just the most for pace bowlers, it is miles in front of any other pair. On the other hand, however, they have played the most games together by miles also, and their record of wickets per game isn't out of this world, being 7.5. I am left looking at the top 10 trying to work out where they fit, and I believe number 5 is fair. For one, their longevity is impressive. For Anderson to still be playing Test cricket at 41 is amazing and worth noting. He also has a good average of just over 26. When it comes to Broad, viewers of the channel will know that I am not his biggest fan, even while admiring his Ashes heroics. But over 600 wickets at an average of 27.7 is still pretty impressive. He is also known for some big moments in recent English cricket folklore. All in all, without being biased towards Englishmen, I do believe that these two need to just scrape their way into the top 5, but no higher. Number 4, Lillee and Thompson. Like Donald and Pollock, these two are another good example for me about what it means to be a great partnership. Lillee and Thompson were of course very different bowlers, which would have caused opening batsmen very different headaches. You had Lillee with his skill and accuracy from one end, and then Thommo from the other, usually looking to knock your head off. Together as a pair, they teamed up for 217 wickets, with what I can only assume a very high percentage of them being my countrymen. For me, Lillee was always the better bowler, he just had a craft to him which I feel was really impressive. But for theatre and the spectacle, Thommo was first class. From his odd run up to his snorting bounces, he was a figure you couldn't take your eyes off. In his Test career, Thommo took 200 wickets at an average of 28, Lillee on the other hand took 355 wickets at 23.9. Both great competitors and such a legendary combination that they even spawned their own person, the mythical Lillee Thompson. Number 3, McGraw and Gillespie. I promise you I am not just suffering from recency bias here. The catalyst for this video actually came from when I was researching Gillespie's career for my Best Bowlers of the 2000s video, and I recalled quite what a handful he actually was. In among that Australian team, it was easy for very talented players to fly a little under the radar, and I think that Dizzy is one of those such players. If you have watched that video, then apologies for repeating myself, but he actually holds the record for the most amount of plays and misses for any bowler in history. That gives testament to his ability to make the ball talk at good pace. McGraw on the other hand, again I have covered him in detail, but he was the reason for me waking up before every Test match in the 90s with a sense of dread in my stomach. I just knew he would nick off the top order without breaking a sweat, he always did. So as a pair they were a very formidable duo, taking 445 wickets together at an average of 8.4 a game. That is made even more impressive by the fact they were vying for wickets, with a certain leg spinner also being part of the team. Over his career, Gillespie took 259 wickets at 26.1, while the all-time great McGraw took 563 at 21.6. Both were a pain who were responsible for ruining my summers in the 90s and 2000s. Number 2, Curtly, Ambrose and Walsh. We are really down to the best of the best here, and without giving away my number ones, if you wanted to place the West Indian duo there, I wouldn't argue with you too much. Both Curtly and Courtney had all-time great careers themselves, so when you line them up together with both opening the bowling, God help the opening batsman. Starting with Kirtley, he had a menacing fire in his belly which had this ravenous appetite for wickets. He would stare through batsmen, and no matter how hard they tried to fake otherwise, the overwhelming majority of batters in the 1990s had fear in their eyes. It was not just the ridiculous bounce he could achieve from lengths no one else could match, it was his skill as well. For me he was like Glenn McGraw, but turned up a notch in that he could hit line and length over and over again, but he had a snorter of a bouncer in his locker also. Walsh on the other hand was a lot quieter than his opening bowling partner. He was not as keen on the death stares and outrageous celebrations. But as his career went on he just seemed to get better and better. I remember a test in 2000 at Lord's where he was jagging the ball so much off the seam it was like he was bowling leg breaks, at 90 miles per hour. His longevity was also very impressive, with him briefly holding the record for the most amount of wickets in Test history. Between them they took 762 wickets together, the second highest of any seam pair, with Walsh averaging 24.4 and Ambrose being one of only a handful of men to average under 21 in Test cricket history. Number 1, Wasim Akram and Waqar Younis. For this entry I am going to take you down a little bit of memory lane. When I was young I always got the Playfair cricket handbooks as a gift each birthday. Armed with my new present I would sit in my room and pore over the stats and results from the previous year. These were pre-internet days of course. Well, one such year, I was reviewing the Pakistan test matches for the last 12 months and I legitimately thought it was a misprint. Every single game Wasim and Waqar were running through sides. One innings it was Waqar, the next it was Wasim destroying the opposition. I flipped from page to page and back again in bemusement. It didn't matter the opponent, the result was the same, dominant bowling displays by one or both of the pair that had me so shocked at these monsters Pakistan had in their ranks. But it wasn't just individual performances which make these two the best partnership ever, it was also the contrast in styles. Waqar with his slingy, reverse swing rockets and Wasim with his left arm action, causing problems no matter over or around the wicket. As a pair they took 559 wickets together at an average of 9.2 a game, way more than any other. I would even go as far to say that at their peak this average would have been 12 or 13 wickets per game, they were that dominant. They both took around 400 test wickets at an average of 23, and if they aren't in the ICC Hall of Fame, they should be. All in all, for a period of about 4 years in the early 90s they were the best opening bowling pair ever to play the game, and are my number 1. That wraps up this top 10 list, and although a few of you got 4 out of the 5, I don't think anyone had it exactly the same as me. Well, Kazar had all 5 but he picked 6 pairs, so he's amusingly disqualified. One pair who could consider themselves unlucky would probably be the South African duo of Dale Steyn and Morn Morkel. If you want to nip a pair out of the 10-6 group for them, I wouldn't fight you for it, they were both very good. That's it though for this short series. As ever, thank you all so much for contributing and watching the channel. Until next time.